I'm a happy man today. It is so good to be with you again and to be sharing with you God's plan for life, for recovery, for your marriage, and yeah, I respect your commitment to be here and to be growing and trusting God to do great things in your life as you seek to get to a better place in this challenging area of sexual addiction. And so I'm respect you being here. I'm glad to be back. And and today I want to talk about God's design for intimacy. And this is the purpose of sex and marriage and where addiction has impacted it. Okay. That's where I want to go. And so let me work through that with you here. It's important as you try to embark on a rebuild in your recovery that you develop a healthy and comprehensive perspective of what God's original design or his purposes for sexuality. Um, what did God intend intimacy to bring about within the confines of a committed married love? Well, like recognize that in some ways your marital love perspective, actually your sexual perspective, first of all, but it affected your marriage intimacy. It got distorted by, a worldview that was hugely impacted by a selfish sexual addiction. And, uh, I mean, it's hard, especially just within a culture that is so jaded towards uh, a limited self-seeking view of sexuality. We have to grow beyond the negative reductionistic kind of sex for me view that addiction um, kind of pushes us toward. Um, and the goal would be that you would, by God's grace and your wife's healing as well as yours, or that there would be the potential of a vibrant and mutual intimacy within a solid marriage, and that's what God would want. But keep in mind that even though the world kind of stakes a flag on sexuality, we know about sex and all that, that sex was originally God's idea, that he created sex and he wanted um, uh, marital intimacy, sexual intimacy to be awesome. Uh, he created men and women as sexual creatures in the first place, and we are regarded as the pinnacle of his creation, and he declared that everything he created was very good, including the sexual capacity in the marriage. And so, but everything that God creates good. Got to understand that the enemy tries to pervert. Now, let me digress for a little bit. Um, God knew that we needed to sleep, so he made sleeping enjoyable. But the enemy does crazy things like trying to make us driven so we don't sleep very much or makes us lazy so we sleep all the time. Both of those extremes are not healthy. Get your healthy, balanced sleep, but don't sleep too much or don't sleep too little. But those extremes, the enemy would push you to. God knew that we needed to eat to sustain life. So he made eating enjoyable. He gave us the taste buds for that exact reason. And we love the salt taste. We love the sweet taste, et cetera, et cetera. But again, anything that God creates to be good, the enemy tries to pervert, with either anorexia, under eating or overeating, being addicted to food and being unhealthy. Well, the enemy, anything God creates good, the enemy tries to pervert and mess up. And it is really true with the sexual intimacy designed for marriage. It's everything that God creates good, the enemy tries to pervert or twist. And so the enemy tries to strip it of its meaning, its sanctity, its exclusiveness, and uh, and so that's what happens when sexual addiction rules the day, when it's really impacting your life and impacting your marriage because you brought that template of what sexual intimacy is to you, and I've just asked that you'd open your mind to learn how God originally envisioned marital sex to be. And hopefully, once you've cleared out some of the negative cultural and addictive based values that has kind of impacted your sex life, and even how you've operated privately, because I know for many of you the porn thing is has really messed you up. And so what I'm going to do is um, I'm going to give you a picture as best I can of what I understood um, as I see scripture and see God's plan for the sexual relationship in marriage. I'm going to give you as clear as I can what God had intended, and then we're going to look at what are some of the implications in recovery. If this is true, this is part of what God intended, and I got basically six purposes for sex in marriage. Um, uh, then then you can see where it collides with the addiction. And so let's walk through these. So these are the purposes of sex and marriage, God's original plan that, of course, the enemy wanted to mess up. So first of all, number one is to proclaim love. The greater the love, the greater the freedom to share the joy of holistic sexual expression through your trusting and caring connection. See that sense of a loving, nurturing relationship. Uh, Great marital intimacy is comprehensive in scope. It's relational, it's emotional, it's spiritual, and it is sexual. Sex is a part of the full manifestation of "I love you," but it's too often it's seen as the sole representation or somehow the highest representation that I really love you. No, it is part of the picture, but it isn't paramount. um, we need to focus on the goal of making love with our spouse, not just having sex, because making love is much more holistic, where it's two people coming together, hearts, minds, souls, and yes, bodies, not just, as it were, wham, bam, thank you, man. Marital love is designed to be relational, where the partner is a person that you love, not an object that you use. Love causes you to stay present. You're not in fantasy someplace else. You're present with your spouse. You're focusing on them during the sexual experience, and having sex is a very self-absorbed and pushes to get my needs met. That's so different than making love. But the but you see, if I am not present because of my addictive past, if I am focusing on other things I've seen or whatever, and I'm just using my spouse as kind of a an extension of my addiction, that fantasy world is kind of letting the biological drive call the shots, and it's often a one-sided sex that the partner's needs, both of them, aren't being met. Sometimes there's even anger, blaming, pressuring, criticizing when it is merely about sex. This is not making love. This is not us. This is not us together. Rather, with lovemaking, we say it by our actions and disposition, both outside the bedroom and inside the bedroom. I love you because I'm with you right now. We're doing this together and we're sharing in a mutually fulfilling sexual, sensuous experience. Is to proclaim love, to express love, a comprehensive thing where sex is just part of the story. And so you can understand that the implications for addiction recovery are, well, that's quite different, because it was a lot of times about me. It was focusing just on the sexual side. We weren't doing too well maybe outside the bedroom, and I was trying to make it go. Or sometimes we were having frustrations and we had an emotional gap, and I was still putting pressures on. We haven't been intimate for a while, and all this, and so often the addiction overdrive was violating the love connection, because the emotional, relational, spiritual needs were not being met as well. And so to proclaim love, to be part of the package of really having a loving marriage, sex was designed to be part of that. And again, not even necessarily the pinnacle of it, although it is wonderfully addicting, as it were. So that's number one. to proclaim love. The second purpose of sexuality in marriage, according to God's plan, is to promote unity. The Bible calls this oneness, and there's such a joy in this unique and exclusive expression of connection. Um, like it is unifying. Actually, physiologically, it is unifying as the intercourse act takes place. Uh, but it can augment the harmony in a friendship like nothing else can. And this idea of unity is related to the word exclusiveness. And as God intended, the husband and his wife would be united, the two becoming one flesh. And what God has brought together, let no one separate. You can read it for yourself there. In Mark chapter 10, 9 and 10, they're no longer two but one. It's the joining of bodies, and it's to promote closeness. The act of intercourse, this amazing symbolism of two becoming one. And this is what God intended, a full expression of unity. And this is the concept that goes with this unity. Unity is oneness. The problem with, porn or acting out with other people, it's not oneness, it's fiveness, it's 20ness or whatever, but it's not oneness. I mean, to be able to say within your marriage, I do this only with you. See, there's unity. If I'm not with you, this is not happening. So whether it's an addictive pattern with pornography and masturbation with the PMO cycle, or maybe you've quit with the porn, but you now have a fantasy background. So now you got FMO fantasy, masturbation orgasm happening, but you see that is not focused on your spouse. That's simply for your sexual release. And so this idea of oneness, I only do this with you. And literally there's nothing between us because it's a flesh on flesh experience as your bodies are joined. When you're lovemaking well, it's the full expression of us. And it's so deeply captivating. I'm unique to you and you're unique to me. And so you understand when a partner feels that that's what it's supposed to be, and we're off, visually gallivanting with all kinds of online material, or scoping people, or on a masturbation journey, or if you've been involved outside the marriage with an affair, or seeking partners just for sex, understand that really violates that sense of us. And I do this only with you. And so through the joining of bodies, of hearts and souls, my wife and I are one as God intended, completely unified. Yes, one flesh, but unique, exclusive in mind and heart and soul, just the two of us becoming one. And that's the promoting unity. Well, you understand, of course, the implications in recovery. There's been a sizable violation on I do this only with you. And so the wife feels violated, or the partner feels violated if it's the woman who has the sexual addiction, because they're not exclusive, you see? And so there's some challenges there to recover well, because within marriage, there needs to be that safe feeling that it's just me, that it's just me. There's nobody else in your mind, nobody else physically, in reality, whether it's in person or online, there's nobody else. And that really does promote a unity when there is that exclusiveness there. Thirdly, to reduce identity. There is joy in being able to make love well. Now, sometimes people say, oh, I have such a large, sex drive. No, what's happened is already at 11, 12, 13, you were in the PMO cycle and addicted very early, and you saw so many things sexually that you feel that because of all your experience and all you've seen, you must be a good lovemaker. Well, that's not necessarily true. You might have learned a type of sexuality that is very self-absorbed, is very, centered about you and your needs. And understand that there is both delight and satisfaction in fulfilling your role as a sexual creature with your spouse. What does that mean? That means that you grow in your ability to make sure that your spouse is satisfied and emotionally and physiologically happy. You see, with the affirmation of being a good lover, because we're talking about making love, not having sex, it brings a personal satisfaction. It says, referring to Jesus, but actually Paul said it, it's better to give than to receive. Well, the addicted mind doesn't say that. It's better to receive and keep receiving and keep asking and wanting more, and it's not enough. And well, that's the ferocious, unchecked, addictive mindset that is winning there. But within marriage, being a good lover is certainly a significant part of one's life verification for manhood and womanhood. Uh, there's no argument that it is true and right to say regarding your sexual experiences with your spouse that you make me feel like a man, you make me feel like a woman, but that's only part of it. I want to make you feel like a woman, or I want to make you feel like a man. If for the women, you see, the idea is having this healthy and mutual intimacy where we feel wanted, we feel valued, we feel needed, we feel pursued. Loving well and being loved well impacts both our sexual identity and our self-worth. See, when you're driven by a self-centered love, you don't feel good about yourself. Matter of fact, there's many times as I've worked with couples in sexual addiction recovery that their sex life was identified that, in this case here, I'll talk about you gentlemen as men, that the man drives his agenda, is wanting these things and pushes the wife even past her level of variation, freedom, and is getting what he needs and have his release, and then is good. That was great, right, hon? That was good for you, I'm sure. Goes over to sleep, and she lays in bed and cries for half an hour because she feels so empty and barren and not really feeling the love. But the goal needs to be that I need to become a student of my spouse, that I need to understand what they need to really enjoy this. And and sometimes a often distorted view of sexuality because histories of abuse, porn exposure, recreational sex, whatever. We don't have an easy we don't have an easy path to get to healthy sexual intimacy because it is so loaded with other stuff, coming into the marriage. Because of these types of narratives, the marriage partner can often feel compared, evaluated, or they're just another conquest, and they're not really feeling loved. And we need to work through the issues here so that I become one who is good at satisfying my spouse instead of just making sure I get satisfied, which of course is the tendency with the person who is driven by their addiction. As we work through this, by the way, keep asking yourself, where am I on this one? How do I see things? So let's go on to number 4 of the purposes of sex and marriage as God originally planned. Number 4 is to prevent fornication. Fornication is cheating outside the marriage. And so a vibrant, meaningful sex life in marriage is designed to keep a couple unified for life. Faithfulness is a beautiful thing when couched in loyalty and trust. And the passion of sexual desire is strong, and it's a powerful draw that's intended to draw you back to each other. And this sexual loyalty is a beautiful give and take relationship, on the one hand, there's this a person experiences the joy of staying faithful, so that there's this healthy, pure, God-given meeting of needs. So it's the joy of staying faithful, but you can also experience the joy of being faithful, as we're working to meet their needs alone. And so staying faithful is staying unique to this relationship, but being faithful is working hard to fully meet their needs. Um, though it's not one of our responsibilities alone, regular intimacy does assist the spouse in not looking elsewhere. Uh, and be careful in your recovery. You could easily grab this and say, well, if we were having sex more regularly, I wouldn't have this addiction problem. That's a pile of fill in the blank. I mean, because you see, there's when you grow. Now, it doesn't mean your partner doesn't have some hurts of her own, but when you grow towards healthy mutual love making, where you're meeting each other's needs and putting each other before each other as far as emotional needs, relational needs, you got a healthy relationship outside the bedroom, right? You know, being connected with Donna Lynn, for coming up 50 years now, has left me strong in this world where I'm dealing with many couples through their sexual problems and hearing all kinds of addiction stories that are very jaded and colorful and sexually compromising. But by having a healthy intimacy with Donna Lynn, it allows me to just stay focused on being one who helps. And so I know in that passage it talks about you're not supposed to deprive each other, but it takes a while to rebuild trust, right? And ultimately, when the marriage intimacy is good because there's comprehensive intimacy outside the bedroom, again, relational, emotional, spiritual, and sexual. When it's a comprehensive lovemaking, and that the marriage is strong, it does give you a sense of strength when you go into this world, because I do have a healthy relationship with my spouse. And Donna and I've talked about this, and she understands that we've agreed on a level of regularity in our intimacy, so that when I'm working with young couples struggling with sexual addiction, or there's been a marital affair, or yada yada yada, that my mind doesn't run places. I can stay centered and focused, and I don't vicariously enjoy this whole discussion with these couples in their sex life. No, I can stand outside of it, because Donna and I have this healthy relationship. And so ultimately, when things are recovered, the idea that we don't deprive each other sexually, so that we don't get tempted as much. Again, please don't say, "Well, remember the Bible said you can't deprive me. That's why." No, no. Get this healing time happening, because satisfying and mutual sex intimacy is designed to stop temptations to be unfaithful outside the marriage, and so that's part of it. Uh, and certainly, fifthly, to please our passionate urge for intimacy. I mean, face it, there's great joy in sexual gratification. That's why sexual addiction is really hard to break, because when a person has the release with an orgasm, there is an unbelievable, powerful chemical cocktail released in the brain. The dopamine, the oxytocin, the enkephalins, and then later the dopamine hit, the spike of dopamine, that is, do that again, do that again. That was good. Do that again. That is actually God put that in there to draw the husband and wife back together. And so matter of fact, to be very fair, the fact that this passionate urge to express yourself sexually is a strong desire for both husband and wife. both husband and wife. Matter of fact, if it isn't designed to be fully mutual, then we have an argument with God, because the woman has been given part of the anatomy called the clitoris, and it is only designed for to create joy, like a pleasure spot, designed to help her achieve an orgasm, and so God clearly intended it to be mutual. And of course, the world in its pornographic skew, it ends up being more a male dominated thing. It's all about me, and sometimes it takes for most women, it's a gradual process moving towards full sexual arousal, and for the man, it's kind of a sharp, heightened. And men have, frankly, to be a great lover, you have to learn to control and be patient, so that you can, as I like to use the word, bring your wife along with you, that she's fully satisfied, and then the man can move towards that expression of his passionate urge. You see, and this, but understand that this incredibly intoxicating chemical cocktail, though it is um, messed up by the PMO cycle and even acting out, it is it's thoroughly addictive, and it's designed to create this bond, this draw. It's a craving for more appetite, and that reward repeat cycle is set in motion. I like that. The brain keeps saying, let's do that again. Let's remember how we got there, because that was good. That was good. And remember, sex as God created, he's the one that set this adrenaline cycle in motion. Your brain is wired chemically to create further opportunities to re-experience this sexual urge in the orgasm. This is how God's created it. The plan is that you and your spouse will be able to enjoy yourselves in sexual experience for years to come. Um, I'm, I guess I would say I'm surprised that, here Donald and I are in our 50th year of marriage. And I would say that at least half of the couples that I'm working with, because most couples struggling in their marriage are having some struggles in the bedroom as well. They're not experiencing as just as regular and bonding of intimacy as my wife would be having with myself. And so the idea of this, that this is a good thing. The crazy thing about this strong biological need, it still can fall within God's moral structure of the brain, the prefrontal cortex, that says, I will still behave and act wisely and faithfully. Unlike the animal kingdom that simply goes with its urges, where that's the rule of life, human loyalty can win over human lust. And within marriage, God wants you to be both enjoying yourselves fully sexually, but also make sure that you stay committed to the one person. So, but it's a wonderful expression, and God gave that there. Matter of fact, I was told that you understand, Dave, when you and Donald do your marriage conference, that Mexican people don't talk about their sex lives. So we had quite an interesting discussion, right? And I loved, their eyes going big, and whatever. But I had two different godly women leaders come to me and said, "Thank you for giving us permission to talk about this, because we just don't." And it ends up being often just a male dominated thing. And so both need to have those passionate urges pleased. Both do. And so finally, to procreate children, the joy of parenting can't be overstated. Beyond Donald and my marriage itself, our greatest life joy is the blessing of having our own children, and being involved with these married kids now and our grandkids. It's God's plans for the family. Children are a heritage from the Lord. Offspring are reward from Him. Psalm 127. They're an incredible gift from the Lord. We were just talking to one of the the men before we turn this on here, and he and his wife are expecting their first child here in the next 3 weeks or so, and it is such an invigorating, exciting, unbelievable, momentous event when because I had the privilege of being in the delivery room for all four of our children, and I cannot imagine someone saying there's no God when you see this baby born and you see this baby that has never taken a breath and its lungs have never been used by like that, but only fed oxygen through the bloodstream of the mother through the umbilical cord. That baby goes from being a purple color to taking its first breath and starts to become a nice pinky color. Like it is amazing when it takes his first choking breath and then does his little cry thing, and they actually want it to cry because it makes it breathe deeper. And these lungs start working for the first time, and these eyes kind of open a little bit, then they close because they're so out of it, right? It is a miracle. It is a miracle. You can't say there's no God, but to think that this beautiful experience of being a parent is connected to this sexual intimacy. And I just am grateful for the privilege of being a dad. And when you examine the mystery of that little body with all its functioning design, it's overwhelming. That little 7 pound thing is got a whole cardiovascular system, got a whole respiratory system, got a whole digestive tract, got a whole brain system going. It takes its first breath. Like it is just phenomenal, and that it's connected to the sexual experience. Because remember, God wants this race to continue to be sustained. So he made sex enjoyable to draw couples back together so that we could procreate a new life. And well, I'll tell you what, there's such pride in holding your first child. The gentleman who's expecting his child soon, it is such a stinking rev in the heart. Oh my goodness, this is something that my wife and I have. I mean, she birthed it, but we were part of the experience, and just you watch and observe the nuance of their growth. First smile, first giggle, first facial recognition of you. That's a rev. First audible sound, first words, first walking, first talking, hearing the words mama, dada. This is all intoxicating. And you can add more children, blessing upon blessing. We had four. We did lose one in a miscarriage. But it is such an experience to bring kids into this world and the pride of being a mom or a dad. And you know what? If you parent well, it's a gift that keeps on giving. I have such a hilariously beautiful relationship with my kids. Matter of fact, one of my sons who lives locally, we do lunch every Tuesday. And so I'm looking forward to lunch today with my one son because he lives right here. And yeah, it's the power of procreation is utterly astonishing. And so that's another reason for intimacy. But it's not the only reason. But now here's the deal. You can see in these six purposes of sexuality: to proclaim love, to promote unity, to produce identity, to prevent fornication, to please passionate urges, and to procreate children. That these six reasons that are all solidly biblically anchored, um, there needs to be a reset if you've got an addictive pattern, a sexually addictive pattern that's really self-absorbed. And you understand if this is God's plan, you've got a ways to go to get that to a healthier place. And you don't need to be addicted to be lousy in the bedroom. I mean, you can be selfish and misunderstand and don't understand the connection between relational, emotional, spiritual, and sexual intimacy. You don't understand these things, and you can be off. Um, for an extension of this talk, it would be really wise if you listen to this talk together with your spouse, and then you answered the questions that I put in here, discussion starters for married couples in recovery. And those questions would be good for you to consider. And just in case you don't have the handout, I will give those questions here. So after you've listened to the talk again with your spouse, you can have the questions. So, which of these six purposes were clearly violated by you in your previous lovemaking with your spouse? Which one of the six purposes seems to be the most important for you to address first, and explain why you feel that? Which one of the six purposes do you feel you will have the hardest time with in overcoming, and explain why. And this is husband and wife giving their answers. And finally, discuss all six purposes one at a time to fill out your reasons as a couple for developing and growing a healthy and satisfying mutual sex life in your marriage. Focus on what is appreciated, what you really are liking, and what needs to change, what you don't like and you feel is dysfunctional. And take that to the Lord in prayer, and that'll be a wonderful, God honoring, healthy restart to your intimacy. Hope that was challenging, encouraging to you, and maybe helping you get your sex life in your marriage back centered on God's perspective, i.e., true north. All right, let's talk about it.